Hi, everybody. First of all, my name's Dave Gallo, and a little bit about me. I've been about 30 to 40 years working depending on how you cut it, I've been in the world of ocean exploration. And I got into this in an odd way. Horrible student through high school, always interested in science, and spent the nights with my telescope, spent the day building model rockets, president of the science club, president of the model rocketry club. Wanted to be a scientist, but my uh, grades were horrible. I have ADD, but we didn't know that back then. So I used to get these comments: "He's not working to ability. He disturbs others. He talks out of turn." I didn't know what was going on. I sat there. What are people writing down notes? So anyway, at the end of it all, I remember my guidance counselor. I remember it like it was 10 minutes ago. He said, you know, my whole class was talking about colleges, and they pulled me aside and said, "We think you should probably not think so much about colleges." And I thought, wow, because I was thinking about colleges, but trusted them a lot, my guidance counselors and my teachers. So I said, okay. And, I did try a community college right up the street from my home. And same thing with ADD, didn't know what was going on. Horrible tests, and out I went. And then I sold shoes for 6 years, which was, I mean, I was happy doing that. And one day I picked up a National Geographic magazine, 1976. I was in my mid 20s. And there was an article in there about exploring the oceans. And I thought the oceans had been explored. Uh, I thought there were a few hundred feet deep, mud bottom. And in this article, National Geographic magazine was a underwater mountain range drawn by hand, and then there was a little speck on that mountain range, and that speck was the submarine Elvin, and in there was Bob Ballard and two people. Well, basically, what happened after that was that flipped a switch in me, and I said, "That's what I want to do." I got really focused. I got the nerve confidence up to walk right across the parking lot to the State University of New York at Albany, and into the geology department. And then 2.5 years later, got my bachelor's degree, made a dive in that very submarine, and then went on to get a master's and a PhD, mostly because I was always doing the same thing, which was just following my curiosity. A lot of what I do and the people I've worked with over the past 10, 20, 30 years, it always begins with a dream. And usually it's a dream of exploration. We want to know what's out there. A lot of people look up at the skies. I do too sometimes. Heavens are beautiful, stars and the like. But it's not just about that. It's about this planet and thinking about what goes on at the bottom of the sea, what goes on our planet. And it's a fascinating world. And you should never make the mistake of thinking that everything's been done already. It hasn't been done. And because we have to be better citizens of Earth today because of things like pollution and climate change or not, we have to take action. And to take action that's real effective action, you need to understand what you're talking about. Before you can understand it, you've got to explore it. So dreams are powerful, and also they're extremely important to keep in mind that you should dream. When you dream, a lot of people dream about the ocean like this. They dream about the beach. I dream about the beach. It's a wonderful place, just about a mile from where I'm sitting. We have a gorgeous beach, and uh, and that's a great thing to think about the sand and the ocean and the warmth of the sand. But that's a very tiny bit about the ocean. It's a great place. It's where humanity and the oceans come together. But there's a lot more to oceans. And just because it's shallow water, relatively shallow water, doesn't mean we understand that either. It's pretty much once you get below the air on the image like this, you start to enter a totally different world. How do we begin to explore the ocean? I said it was too deep to snorkel, too deep to scuba dive. So we have to use technology. And in this case, you'll see there in the background a ship, a big one, called Atlantis, and then a submarine in the front called Elvin, which both of those used to belong to the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. And what's amazing about this is on that ship, back there, there's about 50 people all working very hard to make sure that the people inside the submarine are protected, stay alive. The submarine in the front, that's the same submarine you saw on that hand-drawn cartoon, Elvin. The two people you see there on the front, they're divers. We call them divers. And they're really there to make sure that all the scientific gear, the lights, the care, everything outside the sub is in the right place. Right beneath them, there's a sphere, and it's a very thick titanium sphere, very strong, with some portholes in it, and it's strong enough to hold back the pressure of the ocean, which is pretty amazing. So right now, 3 people inside there and 50 people on the ship, all working together. It's not just those 3 people to do an expedition to the bottom of the sea. There's a look inside the Elvin on the right, the submarine. On the left is the Apollo and a space capsule. And you can see they're very, very similar. The capsule on the left is designed to hold 3 people. And on the right, same thing. You see there on the right, there's a pilot, and he's looking out the front porthole. And then on either side of him would be a scientist that would look out to either side of the submarine. And the rest is all electronics. There's recorders and sonars and all sorts of other stuff because you're going to the deep. But you're in a capsule, just like space. You're protected from that outside world. And take a look at what that's like to dive on the submarine. And here's a typical Elvin launch. It's not as exciting as the space shuttle, but it is I'm sorry, it doesn't have the same rockets and stuff like a space shuttle, but to us, it's very exciting. So there's 3 people inside there, as I said before, and you get in on board the ship, and then they lift you up on this crane called an A-frame. And it takes a while to get up off the deck. You get very excited by being inside there because they're just moments away from being put into the ocean right now, splash. And you get that lovely color blue when the sub is rocking gently, hopefully, if the weather's good. And so now there you are on the surface, and it's time for the divers, those guys, to check out all the gear. And once they say you're okay to go, you fill a little bit of water into the sub and down you go. It takes 2.5 hours to go from here to the bottom. And on the way down, the light goes from bright blue to light blue to blue, deep blue, dark blue, pitch black. And so most of that time, about 2.5 hours to get to the bottom, about 2 of it, the ocean's perfectly pitch black. And because the sun has never been there, so it's freezing cold too. So it's an incredible journey from the world of light and warm up here to the world of dark down below. Sometimes things sink into the ocean, and we did know they were there. It was just a matter of finding them. And Titanic, everyone knows about Titanic. Well, there's the bow of Titanic. Big shipwreck, sank in 1912. And finding Titanic wasn't easy. I co-led the last mapping expedition and the first mapping expedition to Titanic. So there we are sitting on the bow of Titanic. In this case, it's a robot. Those are the anchor chains on either side of the bow. And Titanic's very cool. As I said, most people on the planet, you say Titanic, they know what you mean. And that's where the steering wheel, the ship's wheel used to be right here on Titanic. That's all that's left of the bridge. So over time, we've learned a little bit about Titanic. We're still learning a lot. And one of the things we're learning that's really important is how to work around shipwrecks. Because I showed you all those boats on the ocean. Well, every single year, about 14 big boats the size of Titanic sink to the bottom of the ocean. And they sink in storms and things like that. And usually there's 20 or 30 people on board. They're tankers and cargo ships. They're not like a luxury liner like Titanic, but they sink. And today, in the past, we would say they're gone forever. They sank into that big, deep world. And today we know that we can reach any shipwreck, and people want to know what happened to the crew. Why did the ship sink? That kind of thing. So we're learning how to do that because we've been back to Titanic and back and back and back. How do you learn to explore something that has all these sharp edges and cables and things like that? And thanks to Titanic, we're actually learning better how to do that and what kind of equipment we need. So it's not just the ship. There's other things that we need to do as well. We made a map, and on top is a map made with sonar, sound. And on the bottom is one we made with cameras. And you'll see that. So that's the bow of Titanic. You see the pointy end on the right. And you can see the anchors I pointed to, and then the different hatches and the mast and the like. But the one made with sound up on top, it's not so bad. It's not as good as the cameras are, but it's pretty cool. So sonar, mapping things with sound, has become very important beneath the ocean. So as I was saying, it's not just the hull, it's also the seafloor around Titanic. There's hundreds of thousands of objects, and there's a piece of the ship there. Many of the objects are from the ship. Many of the objects are from the people that were on board the ship and that sank into the deep. And it's important because it is a cultural site. It's an important site to understand what's there and what shape is it in. We have no idea really everything that's there. And yet we have the technology to be able to do that. So over the past few years, we've been very carefully mapping the bottom of the sea, like that barrel, and other things you see here, wires and lights and things like that. There's a great one. There's a cup sitting on the bottom of the oceans, 2.5 miles deep. And it's got the logo on the front, White Star lines. And so, it's a pretty impressive thing to see something like that.
Want to learn more about our Lunch with the Scientist program? Make sure to like and subscribe and visit us online at www.headwaterscienceinstitute.org for a full list of our video library and curriculum.